Derrick Van Orden has been on a tear overnight since the murder of Charlie Kirk in Utah, and not in a good way. And I can't read all of his tweets because of the swearing that's in there. But there's a lot of tweets where he says the gloves are off and threatening things like federal funding. In one tweet, let's see, from 9 hours ago or so, he says, "We will be making sure that any institution that celebrates political violence will not receive a single penny of federal funding. Gloves are off." And then there's one where he refers to dirty scumbag reporters who are directly culpable for Charlie Kirk's murders. Somebody asks, how do you coexist with people that want to murder you? And Derrick Van Orden's response is, you don't. In other words, in his mind, the de-escalation comes at the point of a gun, apparently. And this is a man with military experience, and I don't doubt all kinds of access to weaponry. There's one where he says he takes shots at Rebecca Cook and Congressman Mark Pocan, saying people like them would have fit perfectly into the Soviet Union. They think they're smarter than everyone and that the government should tell you how to live your life. Okay. Here's a couple more here where he simply says the gloves are off as he reposts others. You've got actor James Woods, who puts a lot of extreme and violent language out there. And he says, don't call it gun violence. It's Democrat violence, which Derrick Van Orden reposted and said, correct. He refers to disgusting the chaos that broke out on the floor of the House of Representatives. The chaos that broke out when fellow Republican Lauren Boebert of Colorado insisted on a spoken prayer rather than a moment of silence. In other words, she wanted special treatment for Charlie Kirk compared to all of the other moments of silence that were held for victims of all political stripes, most of them innocent victims. But Lauren Boebert wanted something different, and when people disagreed, needless to say, there was a woman from Florida, a Republican, who started shouting F-bombs at the Democrats. Just not one of the more graceful moments on the floor of the U.S. House. Here's another one about Derrick Van Orden saying the gloves are off and these horrible vultures claiming to be journalists must be held accountable. Here's one where he says, in response to somebody, F these bags of scum. Let's see. He takes there's another, the gloves are off. Here's one where Nicole Wallace from MSNBC speaks about how political violence has often been committed by Republicans and people who consume conservative media. And Derrick Van Orden puts it up and says, this is the problem. This garbage is the problem. Here's one where he says of another podcast host, I would love to have coffee with this piece of, and then uses the S word there. Once again, we get another shot at Mark Pocan, where he says to somebody, you and your Golden Corral fat F buddy Mark Pocan do not seem to understand how far out of touch you are with everyday Americans. You people are culpable for Charlie Kirk's assassination. Here's another one where he pledges 0 tax dollars. Here's one where he says, I don't think the SOBs, and he spells it all out, of course, that are celebrating this horrific crime have ever watched the movie The Unforgiven. They called the wind, and they are about to reap the AI-empowered whirlwind. These people want a Nazi fascist country. We're not going to do that. These are all from a congressman. All right. Here's an F this terrorist, referring to the show TMZ. When somebody asks, why are you surprised? Derrick Van Orden reposted and says, because they hate God. Here's one where he says to another journalist, You are directly culpable for this assassination and the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. I am not sure that you understand what you and your horrible people have done. Gloves are off, you effing mayonnaise person. And oh wait, more have come up. He's still going. Wow, there's I refreshed the screen and so many more have come up, calling people scum every chance he gets. More scum, more agreeing with people who called other people scum. And I know I have one or two others. Oh, nope, that one's just scum again. This one, you sowed the wind, you punk. Again, Derrick Van Orden essentially threatening violence to other people. Here's more scum. He says of another group, saying, this is the left, meaning the political left. This is the left. They are about to get a right, as in a punch. All right, I hear some of you calling for mercy and saying, look, how long are you going to be read? Are you just going to read Derrick Van Orden's Twitter feed? In this particular case, yes. And it's something I've wanted to do for a long time, but I knew it wasn't going to necessarily make for great radio, except now in this kind of context. I mean, Derrick Van Orden talks like this all the time, usually in drips and drabs, but occasionally these late night rants where he goes off in tens, if not dozens of tweets, calling people names, sometimes not directly, just reposting other people's things and referring to them as scum or using the F word for them. This is his primary constituency. These are the people he most wants to talk to and the people he most wants to please and the people he most wants to agitate. And you might say, well, he is just reacting very strongly to Charlie Kirk's murder. I believe it has gone further than that. This is no longer a man reacting angrily to the murder of a political figure that he agrees with. At some point, you are now using this killing for political purposes. You are politicizing what's going on, especially when you're continuing to want to agitate, sow division, and more or less encourage violence with all of the times that he essentially said, that a punchback is coming in some way, shape, or form. Derrick Van Orden was nowhere to be found in some of these other mass shootings that have happened and in political violence. He went so far as to do some inappropriate name calling after one particular political violent tragedy. And you all know this. If you listen to this show, we've talked about this. So why am I bringing it up again? Because so many of your neighbors don't. They see the softball coverage on local TV stations or the quick little write-ups in newspapers. And I'm not saying there's never been a hard-hitting story done on Derrick Van Orden, but on the scale between fluff stories and journalism that tries to hold Derrick Van Orden to account, the scales are not balanced at all. And some of it borders on stenography. Having seen what a member of Congress from Wisconsin has put out in less than 24 hours since an act of political violence in this country, I am again challenging Wisconsin media to, first off, whenever he does pop up again, because he's not doing town halls. So whenever he does make another spontaneous appearance, if you're able to be there, I really hope your first question isn't about whatever it is he wants to talk about, but whether he thinks this is behavior befitting a member of Congress. Or don't wait for him to show up unexpectedly in your community and call the office right now. And frankly, a lot of his constituents could call the office right now or at some point during the day. I'd urge you to look up his Twitter feed just so that, you have it in front of you. And that way they're not saying, well, you're just going off things that you heard. No, take a look at it. And then maybe call his office. And remember, the people who work in these offices, they are not the members of Congress. You do not need to unload on them. But you can make your point of view known and say, I would just like to know if the congressman thinks that this is the kind of behavior that he thinks is appropriate in the wake of an act of political violence. He knows better. He knows it's not, but he can't help himself. And those of you who are already fighting about this in the comment sections today, watching this program, you may as well take a step back. You know where we stand on this, and you can only throw sand for so long before we start hitting hide and delete buttons, like I wish somebody would have done a long time ago to Derrick Van Orden. I'm Pat Kreitlow. This is the Civic Media Radio Network.